let's talk about the real reason you can't change. There is no getting around it. Change is really, really hard. And this is because actually changing requires us to go through a series of steps and stages that challenge us emotionally and physically. There is one step in particular in the process of change that most people fail at completely. But if we are ever going to live our dream lives and accomplish our goals, changing, and particularly this one step, is necessary to master. So in this video, I'm going to give you an overview of the cycle of change and help you identify where you're getting stuck, and give you some tips for how to move past it so that you can believe in yourself again. Let's head to the flat lay. This video is sponsored by Book of the Month. More on them in a few. So to help us live the lives that we want, understanding change is really important. So we're going to go through the stages of change. Change is like anything else, it has stages that you have to meet in order to fully make it around the circle and change. This model that I'm about to show you is also called the trans-theoretical model. It is a model that psychologists and therapists and everyone in that sphere use to evaluate change and help change occur. I am not a therapist in any way. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a mental health professional. So I recommend that you find a more official resource on this if you want to learn more. We are just going to be going through the stages of change in this one, but the full trans-theoretical model has a lot of different components, such as techniques that help individuals process change, a lot about like what's called the decisional balance, or like how to weigh the pros and cons. So there's like a lot that goes into this model, but I'm just going to give you the very basic steps as a starting point for understanding, and then talk a little bit about where you are getting stuck so that we don't get stuck anymore. So there are 5 steps in the stages of change in the trans-theoretical model, from what I understand. The first one is called pre-contemplation, and this one is just you as you are right now. You haven't thought about changing, you are just living with some unwanted behavior. This is sort of like the start to every single story, right? It's just the hero as they are at the beginning of the story, living their regular life, unaware that the rest of the cycle is going to happen to them and by their actions. So at the first stage, we're just in pre-contemplation. You might even be unaware that what you're doing is problematic at all in this stage. The second stage is called contemplation. I have also seen it called recognition, and that is because you are recognizing what is going wrong. So in this, your awareness is building that a certain behavior of yours is problematic. At this point, you might still be kind of ambivalent about change. You're like not sure if you should change yet, but you're doing a lot of evaluation of the behavior, including talking to friends and family, or just sitting with yourself in your own anxiety, wondering, should I change? Should I not change? But you're basically reevaluating your behavior and yourself to recognize ultimately that the healthy behavior is something that you want to have or to be or to do. So you're starting to see that it's problematic, what you are doing. Then we have the stage called preparation, because you are literally preparing, or it's also called determination, because you are making a determination to change in this stage. So in this stage, you are figuring out exactly how to change, and you are starting to believe that you actually can change. So you start to have a lot more self-efficacy, which is the basic belief that you can do something, can be effective. A lot of times this will involve discussions with friends and family, people who support you, sort of helping prepare you for the next phase, which is called action. And in the action phase, we act. We change our behavior. The action phase first just sounds like a singular action. Okay, you change the behavior. But the action phase is a proper phase because a lot goes into changing a behavior. So you want to rely on those healthy relationships that you have that support the actions being changed. You want to start reconditioning yourself, so substituting healthy alternatives to the unhealthy behavior, and ultimately reinforcing the good behavior through like rewards and other typical things that we hear about for like habit change, right? And then lastly, we have the maintenance phase. I always do this. I end up going from capital letters in my headings to just the last one is lowercase for some reason. I always do this in my videos. Shout out if you've noticed that. In the maintenance phase, the new behavior that you developed in the action phase is being sustained and you have the intention to continue. I think in the original model, it says it's been sustained for like 6 months or so, and you have every intention to continue. So this is going to involve a lot of the same sort of reinforcing the healthy behavior, replacing unhealthy things with healthy alternatives. This is going to involve a lot of the things that helped your action actually work in the action phase. You're going to continue doing them in the maintenance phase, but it's considered maintenance because you are doing it more consistently, and your intention to continue is building your identification of like, now I am a person who eats healthy food instead of junk food. That is becoming more like your identity. So this is a pretty good model as it is. It has the 5 general stages, and you can really see how all these work together to create lasting change. But where are people getting stuck? So I think most people would look at this and say, okay, it's easy to decide to change, to come to a recognition that I need to change, and then decide, okay, yeah, I can change. What's hard is actually taking action, right? So many people might think I get stuck in between here, from going from preparation to action. And I do think that that is a big part of where people get stuck when they change. But I think the bigger part happens within the action phase itself, going from action to maintenance. In here, there is a hidden secret phase that when I looked up this model, I only found this phase in some of the literature I read, not all of it. And I think it's usually considered part of the action phase, but the hidden secret phase in here is called relapse. In this hidden secret phase, you are going back to the unhealthy behavior. Some of these sort of reinforcements and substitutions didn't work, or at least they failed you at least one time within the cycle. You might have, when you're relapsing, a lot of shame associated with that because you told yourself, I'm determined to do this. I told myself I was going to do this and I was succeeding, but now I'm not. So a lot of shame gets built into the relapsing phase. And this is where I see so many people absolutely fail and shut down. I think the action phase in general, getting from action to maintenance, is so hard. Most habit science books that you will read out there on the market are geared toward making this action phase as easy as possible. Behavior change is really hard, not because we don't want to change, or because we haven't told ourselves we will change, or even because we can't do the action. Most of us can do the action of changing, but what is really, really hard about it is that we still find ourselves doing the unhealthy behavior. Now, I want to pause here really quickly and say that relapsing has the connotation of being about substance abuse, and I believe that the trans-theoretical model of change is very heavily applied to substance abuse issues, but that these stages can apply to anything in our lives as well. So I am not making advice here for a substance abuse issue or an addiction issue. I'm just here to explain that relapsing is where I see a lot of people, quote unquote, fail at changing in perfectly average, ordinary, everyday life situations. I want to hop in here and say a quick thank you to this week's sponsor, Book of the Month. Longtime viewers of this channel know I love Book of the Month. I used to be a big reader as a kid, but I just got away from it over time, mostly because choosing a book is such a hassle. That's why I was so thrilled to find Book of the Month, a super popular and fast-growing online book service for readers. They hand select some of the most exciting new release hardcover fiction out there and ship it straight to your door. You can get your first book for just $5 using the code PEDALS. They vet hundreds of books every single month and give readers their choice from a curated selection of new and early release titles so that you can spend more time reading and less time researching. They also, Red Alert, just added audiobooks. So if you want to read on paper one month and in audiobook format the next, Book of the Month has a truckload of great options in both formats. This month, I picked up The Ministry of Time, which is a genre-bending sci-fi novel about a time traveler. So kind of out of my wheelhouse, but I'm super excited to read this. But I also picked up The Return of Ellie Black, which is my trusty thriller of my selection, so very much in my comfort zone. Book of the Month is also risk-free. You can skip a month at any time and not be charged. So if this sounds up your alley, head over to the link in my description and use the code PEDALS to get your first book for $5. Okay, back to the video. So let me give you an example from my own life to describe what I'm talking about here and how you can apply it to your own life. So for a long time, I was the kind of person who didn't wake up early at all. And I thought that was fine, or at least I thought it worked for me. When I was in my pre-contemplation phase about that, I was like, I'll just set 6 alarms and then I'll get up by the time I need to be somewhere. Eventually, I started to realize that what was happening in the morning was I was getting really stressed because I was always running late because I was never waking up on time. It was also causing other people problems because they were relying on me to be where I said I would be at a certain time and I wasn't there. So I did a lot of thinking about it in the contemplation phase, and then I ultimately decided I was going to change and I was going to start waking up early. I started researching how to get better sleep. I started researching alarms that actually get you up in the morning, and I started to develop the belief that I could change and I could get to where I wanted to be, which was an early riser. Plus, I also used my community here to help me with that. My partner and I have lived together for a long time, and he was so happy that I would be getting up early and that I wanted to make this change. Even if it meant my alarm was going to ring while he was still asleep, he was there to support me in figuring out this change. I did all these phases, and then it came to the action, and I looked up a lot of habit science, and I used all the techniques I had figured out during the preparation phase, and I started waking up much earlier. For a while, I was a person who rose at 5 a.m. I did that for a long time, and I still like to get up early. But right now, I am in a situation where I am relapsing. I am only getting up with my alarm, and oftentimes I snooze my alarm and come back to bed and sleep a little bit more multiple times during a morning. So even though I took the action for a long time, I still ended up relapsing after a while simply because maintenance is not full integration. In some models of change that you'll see if you do any research on this, there's another phase here. I can't remember exactly what it is called, but it describes sort of the process of fully integrating the habit into your life and never going back. But this model acknowledges that most people don't actually even make it there. Most people toggle between acting, relapsing, maintenance, relapsing, acting, maintenance. You know, they sort of toggle between this side of the circle, which is why I think it's so important to acknowledge relapsing as the dangerous phase that it is. Not because you're doing a particularly dangerous behavior, although if you are, please seek appropriate medical help, but because when we relapse, when we've been doing a healthy behavior for a long time, and then we go back to our unhealthy behaviors, we experience so much of this shame and guilt. We experience it on ourselves. We say we should have known better. We recognize the problem. We figured out how to change. We should be changing here. And so we feel very guilty because it feels like we are actually not changing. It feels like we are losing when we relapse. So it's a very crushing part of the process because you've committed yourself to changing, but it feels like you actually didn't even get there. And also, sometimes the relationships and the supportive family members who we've told we want to change, when they see us relapse, they can also apply that guilt, which is so the opposite of a healthy relationship. But you often get this double-edged sword when you are in the relapsing phase of guilt and shame inside yourself and guilt and shame being applied externally from other people in your life or people who know you and maybe know you are on this journey. Realistically, this is a normal, natural, expected part of the process. So when you are going through the stages of change, say you are trying to build this habit of being an early riser, when you are going through the stages of change and you relapse, because you will, because that is part of the process, you need to be considering very carefully how you are feeling about yourself in this moment, and you need to be taking a lot of care with managing this shame and guilt applied by yourself and applied by other people, because it will happen to you. I promise. It's not going to feel good. It's going to feel so terrible when you have promised yourself you're not going to eat junk food anymore, and then you find yourself knee deep in a bag of Cheez-Its, right? That is a real example. That is from my life. You're going to feel really guilty and really weird, and it's going to feel like all of the preparation and all of the action you've already taken to not be that person is failing. But it's not. This is a normal part of the process. It is a hidden step 4.5 that you will go through when you are trying to commit to behavior change. This is why all of the habit science books are focused so much on the action phase, because they're trying to prevent you from relapsing. So when you are in the relapsing stage, you want to return to that source material that you have already created for yourself and think about what's working and what's not. You need to be going through an evaluation of all of the techniques you were using to make your action more sustainable. You're going to need to do things like engineering your environment to have more cues toward your healthy behavior and not the unhealthy one, right? Can you really blame yourself for relapsing on those Cheez-Its if you keep Cheez-Its in your house all the time? You need to go back to those relationships that are supposed to be supportive and healthy and ask them for help in these moments. Obviously, if somebody is not being supportive and healthy, you might also need to cut them out of your life. For example, I have a friend who is actually sober, and we were all going to be hanging out one weekend, and they specifically asked us, they were like, hey, to help me stay sober, can we not have my substance of choice in the house anywhere while we are hanging out? And of course, we were so happy to do that because we didn't want to force our friend into an unhealthy position. So find those relationships that are actually supportive. When you get to relapsing, rely on them and say like, oh, hey, I messed up in this. Can you help me get back on track? And if they're actually genuinely healthy and helping relationships, they will do so. I think you also need to go back to your reinforcement, your rewards for doing your healthy behavior. Are they actually rewarding? Are they actually working? Maybe you're relapsing because those rewards weren't strong enough and you need to do a little bit of reevaluation. I almost think at the relapsing phase, you need to go back to preparation and determination and say, okay, I need to figure out how exactly to change. Whatever I was doing here didn't work, or maybe it didn't work for long enough. Maybe I just need to reinvest in the process. What exactly caused me to relapse and how can I adjust that? And then you need to do that and adjust so that you can get beyond it to maintenance. Going through this part of the cycle does involve a little bit of perseverance. That may not be the most fun thing to hear, but you do need to have like a little bit of old-fashioned grit and have that rely on these reasons that you really did want to change. Keep remembering those through the relapsing period, because when you're relapsing, it doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean that you can never change. It doesn't mean that you can't get to maintenance someday or to fully integrate the new behavior into your life. It just means that you are following a natural next step after action while the habit starts to be integrated into your life in a more healthy way. And we often quit because we feel shame, we feel guilt, and we think we can't do it, but we can. We absolutely can get beyond relapsing to maintenance and to fully integrating the change we want into our lives. Where do you keep getting stuck in the cycle of change? And what tips do you have to avoid it or get past it? Let me know down in the comments section below. If you need more direction on planning for big changes and goals in your life, click on my video right here on the screen next to my face about the 2 different types of goals and how you can use both together to succeed. Thank you so much for watching, for being subscribed, for being awesome. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.